movie popcorn is the best popcorn. Don't even at me. Welcome to the show, everybody. It is Tuesday. It is Tuesday, my friends. My name is Stuart Davis. I'm a flawed man of God. I'm a deacon at a small church just outside of Richmond, Virginia. I'm not a pastor, not a biblical scholar. I haven't been to seminary. I'm not trying to get you to join my church or donate to any special cause. What I'm here to do is talk about Jesus, talk about Christianity, talk about God. If you're interested in learning more about Christianity, learning more about starting a relationship with Jesus, welcome to the show. Please stop on by, listen to what's discussed here. Hopefully, it can serve as a primer for you as you take your first few walks towards Christianity. I hope in some way I can be a constructive force in that. If you're here just to talk about Christian issues, listen to Christian opinions, see what what perspectives I give on issues, both inside the church and outside of the church, welcome to the program as well. Because this is what we do here. The chat is up and we have some activity. Welcome, Nernaeth. You are first. You are first. I don't know where Nico is, but somewhere and at some point he's going to see that and know that you were first in the chat. Hopefully, everybody's doing pretty good. Now, why do I have movie popcorn? Whatever. Go to Bowtime. It's the best. It's the best theater in Richmond. Why? If you guys followed the show, I told you guys that I would be taking my father and my son to go see the new Top Gun movie, which is I am way overdue to go see, but we did it. I'm so glad I did. I was not disappointed, much like what the chat said before and what I have heard across the spectrum. They did an excellent job, which is what I was so worried they weren't going to do when they were talking about making a sequel to Top Gun. Because I was sitting there going, how do you make a sequel to Top Gun that's going to live up to the expectations we have? And if you listen to the chat, or if you pay attention to the show, I've talked about this before. Top Gun's got a very special place in my heart. It's the first movie I remember going to see. First movie I remember going to see. I was 3 years old. Dad took me to go see it. It sparked a lifelong passion for aviation, military aviation to be specific. It helped prompt me to start an Army career in military aviation, and just an overall fascination with things that fly and things that blow things up. So it's a very special place in my heart, and it was really nice to see all the good things that that they did to keep the movie consistent with the original. Now, consistent with the original, and that meant at the end, I looked over. My son was sitting in between me and my dad. I looked over, and I saw Nernaeth. I'm going to correct you in a second. I'm going to finish my thought first, but I'm going to correct you in a second. I looked over, I saw my son and I saw my dad together, and I saw my past, my present, and my future. And it was such a nice thing. It's such a nice thing that I got to see for my son, because my dad's father and my dad's mom, so both of my dad's parents, passed away long before I was even thought of. Before my parents were married, before I came along, I never got to know them. My mom's dad was, by all accounts, an asshole, and we didn't have much to do with him. I have very few memories of him. Only one of them was positive. And my mom's mom, who passed away not even a year ago, we had a very strained relationship because of because of in many ways the way she treated my mom, which I found to be terrible, terrible. So I miss the grandparent experience that I missed the grandparent experience that my kids get to enjoy. They have two grandparents who live literally in a detached suite to our house. They get to see them every day. They watch them. They get to grow up with them. They spent, as many years as they had around them. And my parents live right down the road as well, and they get to spend. My son's spending the night there tonight. Actually, dropped them off. When we got back to my house, he hopped in the car with my dad and went home. So he gets to spend the next couple of days with my parents. And like I said, that was a thing I didn't get to see, but watching the joy and the blessing that is grandparenthood. By if you ask anybody who's a grandparent, they love it. Getting to see that. It's very special, and I'm glad that my son gets to do it, and I'm glad that I get to experience it. I get to watch my dad be a grandparent, and get to watch my father-in-law be a grandparent, because I know that they both enjoy it very much. They enjoy it in very different ways, because they are two very different people. And so that's why I thought about talking about that tonight. I invited Eric Rollon on. This is normally his normally scheduled time, but because I was running late, we have a topic we're going to talk about. Hang on, let me get it right, because he came up with it. The next topic that me and Eric are going to talk about is pride, porn, and avarice, the effect it has on our entertainment, our children, and our community at large. So that's what we're going to talk about. And what I told him basically was, um, we need to give that the full episode treatment. So I asked him today, I was like, hey, if you've got time, I told you that we were going to be in a holding pattern, still wearing. He's got things going on, because he was kind of just waiting for me to have a call to call him and tell him I was available, but he's knee deep. The project he got into he was knee deep in. So he's going to pass, but we'll get together in a couple of weeks and get this going. He may still show up. Look, I'm still trying to see if Nick Ricader will be able to come on this week to discuss the SCOTUS ruling on abortion, and his thoughts and my thoughts and Eric's thoughts on how this affects the community, past, present, and future. The that So he may still get on this week, but this all comes down to if my DM gets answered tonight, or whatever. So because of that, or because we were going to have a shortened program, I decided, I'm just going to talk about being a dad with Christianity, and being a dad with Christianity, and how special it is to me. And maybe hear from the chat, if someone other than Nernaeth comes to decides to participate in this. If somebody other than Nernaeth decides to express, their thoughts, and I can read them and then react and converse on that. But that's what we're going to do tonight, for as long as, however. Am I pronouncing your name right? First off, Nernaeth, before I get into this terrible and very incorrect comment you made, am I pronouncing your name right, Nernaeth? Let me know. I can't Arnaud. I don't know how to pronounce the last name. Nernaeth looks like the easiest. How are you supposed to pronounce, how is it properly pronounced? Nernaeth? Nernaeth? Let me know. All right. The Army doesn't fly is incorrect. The Army has the best helicopter pilots on the planet. Okay. If you want to see the best, it is Special Operations Aviation Regiment, SOAR Task Force 160th That's what it is. Those are the guys from most recognizably from Black Hawk Down. They are the tip of the spear when it comes to helicopter aviation, and those guys are some bad asses. Okay, no getting around it. No getting around it. So wrong, you're wrong, and you're wrong, Nernath. You're wrong. Army flies all the time. Nobody else flies the nobody else flies the Apache. Nobody else flies the Chinook. I don't think the Air Force has a Chinook. Nobody else flies the Chinook. I don't think anybody else flies the Kiowa either. Nobody else has the Kiowa Warrior. That's for damn sure. So, you get reading. Go read a Jane's equipment. All right. Go read a Jane's manual. Daggone it. Tolkien wrote an Elvish pronunciation guide. Get reading, boy. I did not know that. I'm not surprised by that, but I did not know that. And so I might actually take you up on that. So, Christianity and fatherhood. Christianity and fatherhood. I've said this before, but this is how I started out. Having a child puts God into perspective in a completely different fashion than it takes than you have when you are not a parent or you're not raising a kid. In many ways, having my son and then my daughter afterwards changed me and my relationship with God undeniably for the better. Undeniably for the better. The worst parts of my personality I have worked on more because of that event. I'm a better person because I wanted my kid to be raised in a better environment, and not because I was a bad environment. I thought I was a fine environment, but because I needed more. And by seeking out more for my son, I ended up putting myself on a path and putting my wife on a path to be better. And I've left bad habits behind, and I'm working on bad habits that I have that I never would have thought about working on if I didn't do those things. So, in many ways, my son saved me. It definitely saved my wife. Bringing a kid into the world, watching them, and I guess this can all you can roll all this together with the views on abortion or whatever. I'm eating this movie popcorn, by the way. I'm not throwing this away. Movie popcorn is the best. Having a baby in your arms, depending on you, the weight of responsibility, the weight of the love that you feel is, in my mind, overpowering, right? And you read that, when you feeling that, and then reading the Bible when it talks about God's patience and how he deals with us is so much of a real thing. When do you give up on your kid? When do you give up on your kid? What would you do? What would you do for your kid? What would you sacrifice for your kid? For their well-being, for the chance of them having a better life, not necessarily being more privileged, not necessarily being a more wealthy, but an enriching, enjoyable, wholesome advantage that they can enjoy and emulate? What would you do to to feel like, what would you do um, if you could ensure that for you? Would you sacrifice yourself? Would you sacrifice yourself if it could ensure that for your kid? I don't know. I don't have a teenager yet, but I can tell you from where I'm sitting right now, absolutely. I absolutely understand God sending Christ down as a sacrifice for us to help us, to be a crutch, right? If your kid was born without a leg, or if your kid lost his leg in a leg losing accident, um, wouldn't you be okay with giving them a prosthetic? Would you give your leg if you could do that? I mean, that's might be a kidney, right? They need a kidney to live. You give them one of your kidneys. Would you give them your only kidney? We're broken people in so many ways, but we love each other. If you have a spouse, if you have a family member, I understand a lot of people come from broken homes and whatnot. It's not something I've witnessed firsthand, but I've witnessed it third hand with it happening for family members and friends and how it impacts you. But we have people in our life that we love. We love those people even though they're broken. We might feel like they're better than us, and we might feel like they've got it all together. But at your core, there's something that we're screwing up. Nico, welcome to the chat. We can say that your reign of firstum is over. However, since Nernaeth decided he wanted to make incorrect statements about the army, we'll say that your reign still exists for scheduled streams. You can hold on to that. But there's an asterisk next to it. Welcome to the program. Also, if I didn't already say so, welcome, Nernaeth. Welcome. Glad to have you. Glad to have you and your thoughts in here. Nernaeth, I'm glad you understand it. And maybe that's hubris on my part. Maybe I got ahead of maybe I let my words get ahead of me on that. I feel like I get it. I feel like I get it better. I feel like I get it. I don't know. It makes sense. It makes sense. Boo Army, go Navy. Well, you guys win tonight because the Top Gun movie was awesome. So enjoy your time in the sun, because it was very cool. It was very cool. Submarines are cool too, but we have Abrams tanks. But here's one thing that the Army and the Navy both have in common: we both have kids that don't respect us at all. Navy's got the Marine Corps, petulant, doesn't want to be reminded of their parents, because Daddy Navy is always there. And for us, it was the Air Corps, the Air Force, which came out of the Army Air Corps, which was part of the Army. They pretend they don't even know us, and they damn sure think that they're smarter than us. So, you guys win tonight. John Smoth. I never really understood how God could love and forgive me for the same stupid sins over and over until I had young kids who never seemed to learn either. It really changed my view of forgiveness, and I truly love God more because of my kids. That's what I mean. Chair Force does take a seat in her name. They ride, but they wear baseball hats and ride vehicles wherever they go. That's what I'm talking about, John. With what you're saying, I have been correcting my kid, and at the same time I'm correcting my kid, I'm thinking, oh crap, what am I telling him when I'm doing the same damn thing to God? The same daggone thing, day in and day out. When I tell my kid, why can't you learn this lesson? At the same time, I'm thinking, yeah, Stuart, why can't you learn that lesson? Because I know that he's thinking that. Come on, son. Come on. What are you doing? My job is to set my kid up for success. I want him to be better than me. Same thing for my daughter. My mind's on him a lot. Because today was a grandfather, father, son outcome. My wife is on Facebook chat telling me to stop with the popcorn. I will not stop with the popcorn. Have you ever? You can't stop with the popcorn. It's movie popcorn. Welcome, Fig, to the chat. What have you missed? Well, I talked about that the Top Gun movie was as advertised. Top Gun movie was as advertised. And we're talking about how much I care about my kids from a Christian perspective. So I've shared my fear that my greatest fear is that I'm wrong about everything. I'm wrong about my faith. I'm wrong about God. We die and nothing happens. Nothing happens. We just disappear, and everything that we know eventually fades away. There's no impact. There's no nothing really. Get that out of the way. My main fear is for my kids. My main fear is that my kid would become apostate. My main fear is that my kid doesn't have a relationship with God. My main fear that my kids give in to sin and let it become their identity and let it become rule their life, as opposed to striving, climbing that mountain to get closer to Christ. That's my biggest fear. And Fig actually saw this. So Fig on the chat. So I had a conversation, which was an argument, and I didn't really present myself very well. When we were talking, there was a chat going on, and there was a discussion about social media. And I think social media is a horrible thing. I would rather it not exist at all. Because I think that the pros are greatly overshadowed by the cons, and that it has had a measurable negative effect on the way society operates. Now we're responsible ultimately for it, but man, the social media on that runaway train might as well be butter on the rails. Might as well. And somebody in the chat, some people in the chat said, blame the parents. And I think that in some cases, there's obviously there's going to have people. Hang on. Obviously, you're going to have people who screw up from a negligent standpoint, from spoiling their child. I want to be friends with my kids standpoint. There's always those folks. Yeah, Fig, I know you were one of the people to say play the parents. I'm not trying to name names. Not trying to name names. But there are obviously going to be those, just like you have bad actors everywhere. However, the people who said, welcome Porcupine, the people who said blame the parents don't have kids. And I said, that's not a fair assessment. And I don't think it's because you can be a great parent. I know people who are great parents who have done things for their kids, sacrificed, been great examples for them, disciplined them appropriately, given them the right moral upbringing and understanding, teaching, education, brought them to church. And where are they now? Struggling. They've got kids that struggle with substance abuse, with other sins out there, who are walked away from God for whatever reason, decided my parents are dumb and they don't know what they're talking about, to the point where it almost feels like it's a crapshoot. But that's the nervous Nelly in me thinking about it like it's a crapshoot. Because when it comes right down to it, your kids have to make the right decision on their own. But the more you set them up for success, the better equipped they are to make that correct. The better they are to make those correct decisions. But all it takes is one slip up sometimes. All it takes is one party that you're at because you just wanted to rebel against your parents just a little bit, and you're there with friends, and they offer you some pills or some heroin or something, and you make the wrong choice, and now you're substance abuse. Now you're a substance abuser. Or you go to college and you get brainwashed by the system there that they have put in place, and you let them separate you from your parents. You end up resenting them for what you're taught. You end up resenting your upbringing. You resent all the good things that they set them up for. And on the other hand, you can come from humble beginnings. You can come from a broken home. You can come from the foster care system, and you can use those as a learning experience, because I don't want this for my kids. I don't want this for me. I don't want to live like this. And use that as an education, as a way to get yourself out of those situations. And that happens as well. it's a scary prospect to look at. So when we talk about not, kids not knowing how to use social media correctly, I don't blame. In some cases, the parents are obvious to blame. But as an overarching, the parents are to blame. I think that's vastly incorrect. I got an argument with one of the guys. I didn't get an argument with Fig about it. Fig felt like he was being ignored in the chat. I was not ignoring you, Fig. The other guy was just taking all the air out of the room. And basically said, you don't know what you're talking about. And I am and this is coming from somebody who always had opinions about what parenting should be before I had kids. But now that I have kids, I understand because of the change that it has. You don't get to critique parenting until you're doing it or you've done it and you've been in that line of fire. We're not heroes, but parenthood is a harrowing and absolutely awesome experience at the same time. And I don't know, maybe it's because I am so passionate about being a parent that I enjoy what age. Oh, I love them at that. I love the kids are the best at that age. We've got kids have been the best at every age. I've enjoyed so much of every single year to the point where I'm sad at every moment that goes away because it's one thing less. But at the same time, I'm so excited about what they're getting into. It's very weird. It's a very surreal thing. If I can feel that excitement and that appreciation, what does God feel about every single life that comes through? The range of emotions he must feel. Of course you would want salvation for every one of your kids. That's why he did it. I'm setting you all up for success, but you all have to be your own people. I made you in my image, he says. But we're all unique as well. Because I don't think my idea of God is that he doesn't want automatons. He wants real people who feel emotions that he probably feels as well. If we're made in his image, I don't think made in his image is in eyes, a nose, ears, stuff like that. We're made in his image in our soul. And our psyche. We have emotions. God is angry in times like this. He's open, especially in the Old Testament. He openly talks about being angry. Talks about being sad. Right? I feel like there's probably excitement in there too. Right? Seems like there's one thing I don't think he has is apathy. He has hope. He has he feels disgust. These are all things we feel. Nernaeth, you can feel appreciation for life at every stage if you are doing what you are supposed to do. Love is a choice. God wants us to make that choice. Without a choice, it is not love. Yeah. The Rafter, my boy Raf. Thank you for joining. Thank you for being in the chat, Raf. My fear is my kid gets too smart for his power level and rationalizes bad behavior in a skewed way. Using a crazy version of logic is the original sin perverting the logos. Yeah. And how many people have done that? You see that in academia all the time. That's what they teach people. Oh, you're smarter than that. You know there's better than that. God, or the Rainbow Lutherans. God gives you these desires because he wants you to act on them. No, God gives you desire. Like you desire your wife or you desire good things for your kids. Not necessarily you desire everything around you. Nath, you'll eventually get slapped down if you get too smart. Been there, done that. No fun. Yeah. How many times have we been knocked off our high horse? How many times we've seen it already in the Bible? David's coming up. David's not too far off. Samson is even closer. These are biblical heroes, right? Samson's a Nazarite. He was special among the special people. And if you know the story of Samson already, you know where that's coming from. He's one book away. He's after he comes up after Joshua. We see Peter over and over. Peter over and over is good. Peter at the beginning. Peter is so real. Peter is so real. Can't really bring Paul into this discussion. And this is why, and maybe this is part of my disconnect sometimes, where I understand Paul and I know I value what he says, but I can't relate to him like I can relate to other writings, because he doesn't take the path of parenthood. He doesn't take the path of fatherhood. He takes the path of the custodian of the church, of ushering the church into what it should become. And that looks a little bit different. And so, like I said, this is where my difficulty with Paul is. Not that I think that he's wrong, not that I think that that anything he says is wrong. It's when I read it, I don't come from the same place that he's coming from. So I struggle to get into what he's saying sometimes. I struggle. And that's why I want to bring the other Paul, his channel, on here to talk about it. Because I'd like to get somebody on here to just run his mouth about Paul. I mean, Paul writes over half of the New Testament, right? I think it's over half. A lot of letters. Writes a lot of letters. He does a lot of good for Christianity. But he's not really part of this. And we really don't hear much about the disciples having kids either. So much of parenthood is discussed, being a fatherhood is discussed with Christ. I think you get a little mix with Christ. You get a little mix of older brother, and dad in there. So Rafter, he's a very monastic view. Definitely set the ground for monks and priests. Yeah, and that's where I struggle with the monastic with monastic life, right? I couldn't do it. It's not for me. And I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong. It just doesn't, the theme doesn't feel right. Doesn't feel consistent. Wild Weave. Hey, Stuart, I'm not going to stick around as I need to go to sleep, but I will watch the VOD when I find the time. Just want to wish you a good night. Weeb, take it easy. Take it easy. Have a good night, sir. Nernath, to be fair, Paul was living like Jesus was coming back in 20 to 30 years. Monastic makes sense when you figure that you don't have enough time. I don't have time for kids. Right. And I hear, and the Rafter has been one of those folks, I hear when they say, look, if you're going to be a priest, this needs to be your job, your main focus. And you can't have a family distracting you from that. Okay. I get it. And I think that I respect that. And you look at it and you're like, well, Moses had kids. Did Moses have kids? Crap. Does Moses have kids? Why can't I remember that? 2 sons. Okay. I don't know why I'm having that type of brain fart today. Jacob has lots of kids, but Jacob's not really the spiritual leader. I mean, they're just I guess he does a decent enough job. They all honor they try to honor God, I guess. Um um David has kids. One of them is Solomon, but he has a lot of kids that don't follow in his footsteps from a righteousness standpoint. Let's see. Let's be honest with you. David was a good guy. Was a great man. Was a great man. That God loved. Most of his sons seemed like they were more interested in politics than God. Solomon was different. Solomon had kids. Woo-wee. Woo. That didn't turn out well. So there's an argument to be made there. I think there's a pretty good argument to be made there. Maybe you should focus on, if you're going to lead people, you're going to focus on that, because if you have kids, maybe you're not there enough to shepherd them along. I don't know. God's a father. God's a father. And he's a way better, more patient, more forgiving God than I am a man. Manasseh was Joseph's. Manasseh was the name of one of Joseph's sons. But he's a better man, or he's better at being the father than me. I sit at his feet. But as much as I try to model my life after Christ, I try to model my parenthood after God as much as I can. Because if God can love me that way, at the very least, if I'm going to love anybody in this world, it should be my kid, as God loves me. He puts us before the angels. He puts us before anybody else. Anything else. If he's going to do that for his kids, what should you be doing for your kids? What should I be doing for my kids? The problem is, I'm not right about everything. He's right about everything. He made everything. Best human father was Hosea in the Old Testament. The prodigal father in the New Testament. Hosea is a hard chapter. Hosea is going to be a hard book. When we get to Hosea, that's going to be a hard book, because Hosea has to deal with some crap. Some crap that would be difficult for me. Because what he has to put up with. It's not tragedy like with Job. It's more, it's literally putting up with somebody else's bad behavior. And it's hard as that is, as hard as what Hosea has to go through, it makes it equally hard. It makes it even harder to understand that that's what we do to God. What Gomer does to Hosea, we do worse to God. Sometimes we feel like Judas, like we betray God. We make his sacrifice count for nothing. A lot of times I think and I feel that way a lot when I'm really feeling guilty about the actions I take. But what I feel like Gomer. And that's a hell of an indictment. And if you guys don't know who that is, stay tuned. Stay tuned, because we're gonna hit Hosea. All right, I'm gonna round this out. We got 45 minutes in here, and this is my first attempt to talk about parenthood. I'd love to get more people on here to talk about fatherhood. Nick's got a Chad Dad thing that they try to get together. I need to find one for Christianity to talk about it, because I'm not even close to being a perfect dad, and I don't have the only perspective out there. And there's better people out there than me to talk about it. So stay tuned. We'll have more talks like this. Happy Father's Day for all the dads out there. Porcupine. I have the guilt tonight. My two oldest boys were just being just butts. I lost my cool because it's the same conversation day in and day out. Oof, duh. Know that. Rafter, you're gonna get there. Right now, your kid is sweet and innocent and dependent and but he cries, poops, but everything is so magical. Magical. They don't talk back yet, and they don't have a sibling to go fight with yet. It's the same conversations day in and day out. Yeah. I lose my cool with my kids all the time. What I do a lot, what I found with my kids. No, I could not. I mean, you've told me you're from the Midwest, Porcupine, but I mean, I wouldn't have. I'm so aloof about that stuff a lot of times. Don't take that personally. What I do with my kids, because it seems to work with them. Mind you, everybody reacts differently to different things. Put my kids on timeout. First, I yell at them for what they did wrong, point out what they had to do, make them feel like they did the dumb thing that they did. Sit on timeout. Come over to them. You know why I put you on timeout? Okay, let's go over this again. You did this. All right. You do this. This is not right. And this is why I'm punishing you. I'm punishing you because we're trying to get this out of you so that when you get older, you understand better. It's just repetitive. So much. Hey, look, think of it this way. We need to continually read the Bible, and we need to continually be reminded of God's word. So do your kids. They need to continually be reminded. They need to continually be reminded about, what they do that's right and wrong. And do it while you can, because eventually they're going to run into a situation where they might not get a second chance at it, right? I say this from a motorcycle rider's perspective. There's times where if I didn't make the right decision, I wouldn't be here right now. Or I might be doing this from a chair, sucking from a straw. Adults adults just don't get called on the mistakes as much. Hopefully, we are self-correcting though. In some ways you're very right in our day-to-day lives, but sometimes you make a mistake. But when you make a mistake and you get called and you are held for account on it, it sets you back. Sets you back. Go into jail. What do you mean I can't hit somebody when I feel like it? What do you mean I can't just take something when I want it? What do you mean there's thought police that we don't know what the future is going to hold? What do you mean the thought police will come and get me and cancel me out? What do you mean the internet's the internet is written in permanent ink. I stole that from Jim Rome. What do you mean the internet's written in permanent ink? What do you mean actions have consequences? Lots of people get through life not being held accountable for those things. A lot of people, but there's also people out there, they don't, the first time they step wrong, they get put on the carpet. So if you're a dad, happy Father's Day. If you're a mother, you guys are great. I'm not taking anything away from the things you do. Happy Mother's Day. I think we already did a Mother's Day thing though, but still, be a parent. Understand the beauty that's in there and the weight of responsibility. Don't get too down on yourself. If you found you made mistakes, if your kids are grown up and you made mistakes, nothing you can do about it. Hopefully you can look back and say you did your best with what you had. Mistakes are going to be made. If you're struggling with being a parent right now, again, do the best with what you've got. Take time back, reflect, look at what you're doing right, look at what you're doing wrong, and head back at them. Change what you need to change. Try something different if it's not working. I don't know. Parenting is so difficult. Parenting is not for the faint of heart. And being a parent is such a overwhelmingly good gift from God. And I'm happy that I got blessed with it. Blessed with a great wife, blessed with an awesome son, blessed with an amazing daughter. Couldn't ask for more. All right. From there, coming from here. Like I've been warning for a while. I've got some work stuff coming up that's might be keeping me away from streaming or affecting the stream. Be patient. I think that's going to hit this week and next week pretty big. Maybe the next 3 weeks. Other thing, I'm going on vacation. I'm going to be taking a few vacations this summer. Okay. I will let you know around those times. Because when I'm on vacation, I'm not going to be streaming probably. Just open a stream and I will entertain from the chat. Maybe I'll do something like that. Maybe I'll be part of the chat. All right, guys and gals. Tomorrow we're going if Nick can't come on tomorrow, we'll get back into Joshua. If Nick can't get into, and if Nick comes on Thursday, we'll do his stream Thursday. If he can't do it there either, we'll get back into we'll stay into Joshua, and we'll go from there. In the meantime, folks, have a great day, have a great evening, have a great week ahead. I care about this, and I'm glad you're all here. Have a good night, and God bless.